he just doesn't operate that way. He just doesn't think that way. He would rather bullshit an answer
Then just hire an expert that can like take care of this for him.
Right. Someone who's like actually an expert rather than Peter Navarro. He wants so many conditions on who he picks for jobs. This is the Bulwark talking about the this interview, which, oh my God, as I said, nightmare.
Hi, managing editor at the Bulwark. I'm joined by Tim Miller. We're going to dissect the Trump Meet the Press interview from this morning. Lots to talk about, as usual. Before we get to that, subscribe to the feed, please. We appreciate it. Tim.
I like how I don't have a title. Everybody else gets like Sam, managing editor. Bill, I'm just Tim. It's kind of like I'm Professor like Beyonce.
Emeritus?
I'm like the Beyonce of the Bulwark. You know, we don't need any description.
If you were the Beyonce, we go. This is Tim. We
yeah, that's a good point.
Tim Miller. You just
anyway.
First name business. I'll give you your title when I have the right words for the proper title. It's just so elated, you know. All right. Meet the Press. Trump loves the show. I mean, I know he shits on TV and networks all the time. He just can't get enough of this stuff because it feels like this is like third or fourth Meet the Press interview since wild. The election. But we'll put that aside. He had a lot to say. We're going to play 4 clips in total. My big picture takeaway is that in a way, and I know this sounds crazy, but in a way, I feel like I'm getting a little callous to Trump because he said a lot of like very off the wall stuff. And I read the transcript. I was like, well, is it that crazy that he's questioning the Constitution? Like that he has to uphold this stuff? That seems like normal. Is it that crazy that he's like saying he might invade this country? So I'm worried about that. I'm actually worried about that. I'm too calloused at this point.
I'm worried about that for you too.
Yeah.
It's like there's like a dog bites man element to it. It's like he's doing the Greenland thing again, and it's like okay, but
he might not do due process. It's like we've been there.
My takeaway from it at the big picture, and this is something that I was thinking about going back to the interview at the Atlantic. When Ashley Parker and Michael Shearer were asking him kind of if he's worried about the economy, and he says something to the effect of like, I already won. No, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about it. Like I won and people voted for this and we'll see what happens. And I think that's in some ways a little dangerous for his political project and the people around him, that he does kind of seem more so than in the past, like willing to be like, whatever, we can take some pain. I don't care. I've already, I do feel like in the first term, he obviously did crazy stuff, but a lot of times he got pulled back from the brink because he didn't like the bad press. He didn't want his numbers to go down. He was very sensitive to that. He feels less sensitive to that now. So that's my big picture psychoanalysis.
That's so okay. I haven't test run this idea, but I'm going to now because I've been thinking about that through the prism of is he or is he not actually serious about a third term?
Yeah.
And I don't think he's actually that serious because of this.
Yes.
I think he doesn't give a fuck because I think he knows that this is it, and public opinion doesn't actually materially matter for him at this point. Correct. And I don't really think he cares that much about J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio, or whoever else would get the nomination. I think it's all about him.
Yeah.
And it's got in my head that almost like, do I kind of want him to want a third term? Like, do I want him to be like reactive to, public opinion more? Because it seems like he's got a higher tolerance for pain at this point.
Right.
And this is a man who already has
obviously, just to be clear, you don't want him to want it because you're hoping for 4 more years of Trump, but because then he would be more responsive to political realities.
I thought that was self-evident.
Okay, I just wanted to say it explicitly.
No, I actually want the full 12 here.
Yeah. I don't know. It is something. I agree with you on that, and I think that that thing is the thing that has always worried me about the third term and the potential chaos at the end. Is it's like, who knows what fucking 81-year-old Trump, could want?
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean?
Truly off rocker.
And so I just think the unpredictability of that is the thing that worries me the most. But anyway, let's get to the clip.
Let's get into the clips. All right, first clip. Here we go. He's going to be talking about, does he actually have any responsibility for this economy? And this is what he has to say.
You've been arguing all week that this is President Biden's economy. Is this now your economy, sir?
Well, I think certain aspects of it are. Costs are. I was able to get down the costs, but even that, it takes a while to get them down, but we got them down good. We lost $5 to $6 billion a day with Biden. $5 to $6 billion. And I've got that down to a great number right now in a record time. We're talking about 100 days.
I don't know the number, but it's great.
Just think of what that is. $5 billion a day we're losing on trade. And we were very tough with China, as you know. We put 145% tariff on. Nobody's ever heard of such a thing. And we've essentially cut off trade relationships by putting that much of a tariff on. And that's okay. We've gone cold turkey. That means that we're not losing. You know, we lost $1 trillion to China. $1 trillion. That means we're not losing $1 trillion when we go cold turkey because we're not doing business with them right now.
You know, I said the same thing when I bought my used car a few years ago and it was like $12,000. I was like, you know, I just lost $12,000. I didn't get anything in return. I just simply lost it. I gave it away. So insanity. It's like the idea that we didn't get anything from China. Yes, and I know he's talking about the deficit, but it's like, again, we discussed before, we are a consumption economy. We are a service economy in the United States. We're just not, you know, putting together little doodads with our fucking hands anymore. That's not how, it's just not, we're not doing things that way because we adapted with the global economy. We do produce some things here, but most of what we buy is stuff that just comes from elsewhere and it's consumed.
And most of what we produce is innovation. That's our big that's what makes us a ton of money is our innovation.
Yeah.
And he's hampering it by defunding research and everything else. So just remember, he's going to hurt the economy in the long term.
Yeah.
Manufacturing is not our strength at all.
Irreparably, potentially. Like, I don't know that we're going to... The idea of America getting back to where we were before, even when it comes to just a vibes perspective from the rest of the world, it's hard to imagine we're ever going to be back to where we were. Like,
it'll take decades.
He's fucked it all up. Like... people have to be confident that America's not going to somehow elect another dipshit like him. Like they just that's where the world's got to be in order. They either got to get so old that they forget, and then they trust us again out of the blue, or they gotta have some sort of confidence that we're not going to pick another Donald Trump ever. The popular vote kind of helped solidify that this time. Americans did technically want this, unfortunately.
And they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal very badly. We'll see how that all turns out, but it's got to be a fair deal.
When does it become the Trump economy?
It partially is right now, and I really mean this. I think the good parts are the Trump economy, and the bad parts are the Biden economy, because he's done a terrible job. He did a terrible job on everything.
Classic. I actually chuckled, and I only read the transcript, but I was chuckling.
Is that because you're hungover, or because I'm
quite hungover, as you can probably tell? But I was reading, I was like, oh my god, that's such a. I get the credit for the good parts, and Biden gets the credits for the bad part. It's like, of course he says that.
It is a classic Trump. I do yes. think not to be classic Bulwark, but it's also kind of a sign of weakness. Like you know what I mean? Like to have to do that,
to have to do it. Yeah, he should want to take full credit. I get it. All right, that was not that exciting. True. But then he was asked about this quote that he had given earlier this week, where he was talking about, this was at the cabinet meeting, kind of infamously. They're like, look, the cost of some goods are going up, and like to your point, he was like, we can stomach this. But he had this line about paying for more dolls, or having only $2 versus $30 for your little girl, and Kristen Welker asked him about it, and he expands on it, and this is what he says.
You were at your cabinet meeting. You said, quote, I'm going to quote what you said, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30.
Yeah.
And maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. Are you saying that your tariffs will cause some prices to go up?
No, I think the tariffs are going to be great for us because it's going to make us rich.
But you said some dolls are going to cost more. Isn't that an acknowledgement that some prices will go up?
I don't think a beautiful baby girl that's 11 years old needs to have $30. I think they can have $3 or $4 because what we were doing with China was just unbelievable. We had a trade deficit of hundreds of billions of dollars with China.
When you say they could have $3 instead of $30, are you saying Americans could see empty store shelves?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they don't need to have $30. They can have $3. They don't need to have 250.
It's okay to admit you don't know.
It is. It is, but he doesn't. He just doesn't operate that way. He just doesn't think that way. He would rather bullshit an answer and just spit out. I mean,
then just hire an expert that can take care of this for him.
Right. Right. Someone who's like actually an expert rather than Peter Navarro. He wants so many conditions on who he picks for jobs.
All right. So I thought that was wild too. And then he went on and he talked about pencils and who needs 250 pencils when you can get 5 pencils. I don't really
Who
have
has 250 pencils?
Who has 5 pencils? I mean, I guess my kid does because he's in school, but like for the dolls and pencils, he is very much stuck in an alternate era. But
the 1950s
what did you make of,
era?
Yeah, the 50s.
Well, like, for starters, my daughter's finally radicalized against Trump. After
the dolls?
Over the dolls. Having to go down to
funny.
2 dolls would be an absolute Hiroshima event in my home.
My God.
So,
have you ever tried to take a stuffy away from your child? It is like, oh my God.
You always have to do it in secret. You always have to do it in secret.
Take one at a time strategically until they wake up one day and they're like, wait a second.
Where's the tiger?
Where
I'm like, tiger? Did you misplace it? You might have misplaced it.
I don't know, man. They
anyway,
walk,
she's radicalized. But I talked to Derek Thompson about this a bunch on Friday, and it's like the whole thing is pointless. Like, what is the point? Like, we're creating shortages for what? Like, you do see some of this on the left, particularly around climate, right? Where people are like, we should consume less. Like, they're and they're like, there's a goal for this. We've got to protect our natural resources, et cetera. So like, there's a I think that's a very unpopular political opinion, and you notice most Democratic presidents don't run on that platform, but that exists, and that's a coherent worldview. What is even the point of this? We are going to stop.
We have to nationalize our doll supply chain.
Yeah, we're going to stop importing dolls from China because we want to manufacture more iPhones in America. Like, there's no like, is there a goal to manufacture more dolls and pencils here? I don't think so. Is that like to create jobs for folks? Like, it's just about some imaginary like balance sheet in his head where he doesn't like the trade.
It demonstrates just how completely out of touch and out of his goddamn mind Donald Trump is. It demonstrates it perfectly because, like, in his eyes, like when he says like 30 dolls and they should only have 2 or 3, he seems to just compartmentalize that too much, right? He doesn't realize that for some people it's like, okay, well, my kid already only had 3-4 dolls over the, and they're 9 years old. My kid already only had 3 or 4. So like, I was hoping to maybe add 1 more to their collection this year on my tight budget for Christmas. But now that shit ain't happening because all these things are going to be more expensive. And that's even, to a lesser extent, that's when you apply, because it's not just tariffs being applied to China. You gotta factor in like food that comes from other parts of the world, food that comes from South America, and we do get, I believe, some probably rice from China, I would assume, other Asian countries, sure, but there's all sorts of other factors there. And Tim, I like what Tim's pointing out is that he's looking at it a different way. It's not so much like, well, some people it's more than dolls. Tim's asking, what does that even do? What does that even do for us? What does that change? Like, you're not like, yeah, you're telling people, hey, maybe things get a little more expensive and maybe you ration. It's like, but you're not illustrating what the benefit
people's
is.
Lives harder. What
the benefit is for people, and you're just promising that things will be better. Just, I don't know, on blind faith, I guess. I'm not sure. Like, well, what's the purpose? What's the end game?
Trade deficit. And so it's like, so we can even Steven the trade deficit, I'm going to make, little Janie like have fewer dolls for Christmas. It's insane.
It's insane. I actually listened to your conversation with Derek. I thought it was spot on, because if the idea here is like, look, we need to.
Someone buy this man a level. You got to level that painting, my guy.
We have to like shore up our supply chains on critical matters like semiconductors or, pharmaceuticals or whatever. Like, cool. Like, I get the idea behind tariffing those things and trying to initiate some sort of repatriation. I don't think we need to do this for dolls. Like, I just don't.
Who does? Nobody does.
Trump does. But the only sort of charitable way to think about it is that I don't actually think he thinks this way. Maybe he does. Is that he wants to inflict pain on China, right? Like to get them to the like a different spot in the negotiations. And so maybe if you just inflict across the board pain and just hit everything, and the American people suffer in the interim, but in the long term, you get better leverage in your trade negotiation. I mean, maybe that's it, but it doesn't make much sense.
Nobody has enunciated that strategy as
Doesn't even
clearly as
accomplish
you.
that
So
goal.
that is true.
What'd you say?
I said it doesn't even accomplish that goal.
No. I think I don't think he's assuming it will. He's just trying to understand what their fucking logic even is. Cause it's just crazy. It just doesn't make any sense. If you take, I got a business degree when I went to college. I was when I say barely graduated, it's not like it was like a photo finish type situation. I had a strong final semester and I ended up making some ground back on my GPA, but I mostly just kind of got through it, right? Like I just kind of, was basically like a sub, maybe slightly below average student, but I don't think it was just my application, right? It was just that I didn't put the effort in that was probably needed. And I didn't understand that when I was 18, 19, and 20. But, when I got a little older, I did start to grasp it better. I had a macroeconomics course, and it is like macroeconomics is something like econ like 102 or 110 or something. It's like a very early basic economics course, and you learn very quickly about the concept of economic specialization, where the United States is not very good at producing bananas. So we find a country in South America who's good at producing bananas, and then we're trading other things back and forth. And there is never, ever, ever the assumption for any reason that two different countries are going to be at a bang on dead even trade balance, right? Where we're going to buy just as much from them as they buy from us. Why does this idiot president seem to think that is somehow necessary, or that is somehow going to make us better or healthier? It is so stupid. He's just trying to yank us back to a time period where we were a manufacturing economy, like dominantly, which is not. It just doesn't apply right now. It just doesn't apply to the times. It doesn't apply to the situation. It's just crazy.
You can't shock the economy back into that too. It's
exactly
not how that works.
If you incentivize, you have to do it slowly if you're going to do it. I don't think it's even a bad thing to want that for America per se. It's just, why do you have to put a gun to the head of the global economy and basically simultaneously shut down the markets in a way, especially when you look at like imports, to just shut everything down? Like he's going to bring on basically another COVID level, like economic downturn shutdown situation almost. Mm-hmm. Off of just what? Wanting to charge more for, or wanting to even out, quote unquote, trade deficits? That's crazy. Just crazy.
I'd like to hear it from the administration.
Wow.
So maybe if we hear from, but he's getting rid of the biggest China hawks in the administration. I mean, Waltz is more of a China hawk than these other guys. So
I know. Well, that is the weird irony of it, is like, who's running this? Because Navarro is the China hawk, and he's been sort of sidelined. Waltz has been sidelined, and it's kind of weird, which makes me just think it's all in Trump.
They're talking Mike Waltz? What the fuck does he have to do with trade? They're talking Mike Waltz, right? Who else?
I'm thinking. Unless they accidentally said Mike Waltz, then.
Yeah, maybe they're meaning Besant or something.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know.
Trump's head, right? Like he's just trying to
I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, perfect. All right, let's switch to the two foreign policy elements on Meet the Press. First, this one was interesting because it comes in the wake of obviously the Canadian elections. He was asked about the new prime minister there, who is apparently coming to Washington, D.C. This week, and also called Trump and talked about it. And look, it sounds like Trump has a better relationship with Carney than he did with Trudeau. Here's what he had to say about Canada and in relation Greenland.
You and I talked, and I asked you if you would rule out military force to take Greenland, and you said no, you don't rule out anything. Would you rule out military force to take Canada?
Well, I think we're not going to ever get to that point. It could happen. Something could happen with Greenland. I'll be honest. We need that for national and international security.
But not with
I think
Canada?
It's highly unlikely. I don't see it with Canada. I just don't see it. I have to be honest with you.
Okay, but you don't rule it out for Greenland.
And by the way, Canada, they spend less money on military than practically any nation in the world. They pay NATO less than any nation. They think we're subsidized. They think we are going to protect them. And really, we are. But the truth is, they don't carry their full share, and it's unfair to the United States and our taxpayers.
But you are not ruling out military force to take Greenland.
I don't rule it out. I don't say I'm going to do it, but I don't rule out anything. No, not there. We need that. We need Greenland very badly. Greenland is a very small amount of people, which we'll take care of and we'll cherish them and all of that. But we need that for international security.
All right, so I know you have some thoughts on this.
We'll cherish Greenland like Lenny cherished the bunny in what was that book called? Shit. Oh, I don't remember the name of that book. It's not Grapes of Wrath, right? Or is it Grapes of Wrath? No, that's something else. It was some book of Mice and Men. That's it. Of Mice and Men. That's with Lenny and the rabbit. Yeah, we're gonna cherish Greenland like he cherished the rabbit.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing there is this gimmick that happens, this like cat and mouse game with Trump on these interviews with the Kristen Welkers of the world, and I don't really know there's a good solution to it. So this isn't really a critique, but you have this thing where the reporter will be like, "Will you rule out insane thing X that he had bleated about?" And he does well, you can't rule anything out, and then like the headline is Trump doesn't rule out doing insane thing X, right? And like that's fair, like but it also is a little bit like, well, the reporter actually inserted the idea into the conversation, so I take it with like a little bit more of a grain of salt. In this exchange,
that's a good point.
The reporter asks, "Will you rule out invading Canada?" And he kind of does, actually. But then he volunteers, "But I will not rule out going into Greenland with military strategy." And to me, that is now Trump inserting that idea into the conversation himself. And so it carries more weight. And again, I just we're in the middle of these negotiations, supposedly, and the sub-negotiations and the sub deals with Europe. And it's like, if you're Europe, if you're Denmark, if you're the EU, like this is the president of the United States volunteering to a reporter that that we have serious national security issues in Greenland and we might invade. Like it's on the table. Like that is like very serious, and I think has very real implications in addition to just being like completely off the
yes,
chain.
It's off chain. And yes, the fact that he was the one who brought it up adds an element of seriousness to it. I will just note, again, I back to the being callous, but it wasn't that he ruled out invading Canada. He just called it highly unlikely. I just want to be clear, okay? The more normal thing to be was be like, of course I'm not going to invade Canada. Highly unlikely at this point. Good to know. We're all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're a Canadian and you hear that, you're not liking the words highly unlikely, as opposed to no, I would never do that. So fucking nuts. I just, this idea that we would be invading other allied nations just because we want their land, resources, something like that, is just it's bonkers.
Only,
so you're saying there's a chance.
There's a small percent chance we might just do it, but
the
don't want to rule
dumb
it out.
meme, I love it.
All right, last one. Russia, Ukraine. He's asked about, again, we were supposed to have, this thing was supposed to be fucking resolved on day one. Here we are, day 100, whatever, and we're still dealing with this. It's difficult shit. But he's asked about Russia, Ukraine. Here's what he says.
Are you any closer to reaching a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia?
I hope so.
How would you characterize
I do believe we're closer with one party and maybe not as close with the other, but we'll have to see. I'd like to not say which one we're closer to, but we did do a deal for the American people that was good. We were able to get rare earth. The Europeans are getting paid back. They have a loan. We didn't. Biden just gave him $350 billion. He has no idea where the money is, what happened. And at least we'll, in one form or another, get our, I don't feel so foolish. And remember this is Biden's war. This was a war that was never going to happen if I were president. This is a horrible, horrible war.
Oh, yes, it would have. Shut the fuck up.
Of soldiers through.
Yeah, obviously it would have. That's yeah. The claim there is just. I mean, it not only.
He has this like false idea. He has a control of what Putin's going to do. Yes,
because he thinks that him and Putin are pals. He doesn't understand how that Putin simply uses him. Like he doesn't get that. Now Putin definitely thought of Donald Trump when he chose to invade Ukraine on Biden's watch. He knew that Trump would be able to use it as a campaign talking point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Regardless of the truth behind it. So,
satellite that are so just.
I got to feed these dogs. I'm going to let this play and I'll be right back.
Yep.
So terrible. 5,000 soldiers are being, 5,000 soldiers a week on average are dying. They're not American soldiers, but I want to solve the problem. They're Russian soldiers and they're Ukrainian soldiers. And if I can save 5,000 souls, I just love doing it.
All right, so a bit cryptic there. I don't know. Am I reading it correctly? I'm reading it. I'm reading it a certain way. I want to know how you're reading it.
I am genuinely unsure. I could see it both ways. I'll be interested to see which way you land. But let's play it out, though, because I want to give it out. Because this is a quote that is offensive and horrific, no matter which way it means. Maybe he means that we're closer to getting a deal with Russia than with Ukraine. And like he knows that he is going to get in trouble if he says that Zelensky is the problematic one. So he's being cheeky and he's like, I don't want to say his name, but it's the little Jewish guy running Ukraine that's the problem here. And like he's being stubborn and we need to nudge him along. Maybe that's what's happening. I think it's probably more likely it's the other way, where he's like, actually, I met with Zelensky recently, and it's Russia that maybe we're a little further away than he had anticipated, but he doesn't want to say that because he doesn't want to admit it. But if that is what he's saying, that is horrible, though. Like this is like I don't want to offend.
What he's saying. That's clearly what
I don't want to offend Vladimir Putin. I can't. But I mean, they just think about how he's berated.
He can't be he can't be critical in public of Putin.
Of Putin, yeah.
Okay.
He's berated Zelensky over and over again, and it's like he can't even say that Putin is not as amenable to this peace deal as we hoped he would be. Like you can't say that. I mean, that is again that makes him the junior partner to Putin in this negotiation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And it's evident to me that this is what it is because Ukraine just signed the minerals deal.
Yeah.
They are comfortable with the 30-day ceasefire. Russia violated it. They have been, relatively, stable negotiators on this peace deal. Obviously, they're not wanting to recognize Crimea, right? But it's evident across the board that Russia's the aggressor here. And I think it's dawning on Trump a little bit, finally, that he is being completely played and bent over by Putin. And it's like, the problem is he can't admit it, right? He can't admit it because as soon as he admits it, he looks like such an idiot. Yeah. And so that's why you have answers like this. It's bad. It's bad, but I think the other way would have been worse.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I mean, it's not great. He's in a pretty terrible situation. I guess
it's his own making, though.
Yeah, it would be good. It would be good only if it was like there's a chance that he could get so upset that it didn't work out that he would then turn to supporting Ukraine. But I think that he's cornered himself in such a way that that's not possible.
He can't. Once you berate Zelensky like that and whip up your supporters to think that Ukraine is a corrupt, horrible place that is just sucking U.S. money, right, and that this could all be the beginning of World War III, you can't go back from that.
You can't go back. I know.
So that's where we're at. All right, man. Thank you for watching this. Appreciate it. Thank you for jumping on me. Appreciate it.
Go Nugs.
Go nurse this hangover. Hey.
So they're signing off there. Yeah, I mean, I really like that what they covered from that interview. I mean, the Meet the Press interview, been totally just batshit. The one thing I do not think they covered with the interview is the clip I queued up. I didn't mean to play it that way, but just happened to play it that way. That's happened another time where I watched a Bulwark video where they were talking about something else, like some Trump interview or something like that. And then the next video I had queued was about that same topic, but it was a clip that the Bulwark didn't cover. Bizarre how that's the second time that has occurred, coincidentally speaking. So, yeah. This is, of course, you might be able to chalk this up somewhat as like part of the distraction of Trump, where he's trying to distract from some of the crazier things he's wanting to do. But it's concerning nonetheless. He obviously, as not only the chief executive of our government, but as any officer serving the government, hang on. Had to yell at the damn dogs. He does obviously have a responsibility to uphold the Constitution. It's in the fucking oath that he swears to take office, which he did swear this time. So, he obviously has an oath to uphold the Constitution, and he says, I don't know.
This because obviously you've had a back and forth with the Supreme Court. In a 9-0 decision, the Supreme Court directed your administration to facilitate the return. You've talked about this in the past, of Kilmar Abrego Garcia from a prison in El Salvador, whose deportation your administration called an administrative error. You said in a recent interview you could bring him back, but you won't. Are you defying the Supreme Court, sir?
No, I'm relying on the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, who's very capable, doing a great job, because I'm not involved in the legality or the illegality. I have lawyers to do that, and that's why I have a great DOJ. We have a great one. We had a very corrupt one before. Now we have a great one. And they're not viewing the decision the way you said it. They don't view it that way at all. They think it's a totally different decision.
Well, you say you have the power to bring him back, though. Your attorney general says, quote, that's up to El Salvador. Just to put a fine point on this, do you have the power to bring Abrego Garcia back as the Supreme Court?
Well, I have the power to ask for him to come back if I'm instructed by the attorney general that it's legal to do so. But the decision as to whether or not he should come back.
That is horse shit. Complete and total horse shit. If you think you have the power to sign an executive order to end birthright citizenship, you have the power to do this. Let me just be clear.
Will be the head of El Salvador. He's a very capable man.
Well, and your attorney general has said the issue is with that word facilitate. Will you seek clarification from the Supreme Court? Do you need to go back to the Supreme Court?
We may do that. I was asking about that. We may do that.
Your Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Amendment says.
I don't know. It seems it might say that, but if you're talking about that, then we'd have to have 1 million or 2 million or 3 million trials. We have thousands of people.
Then pass legislation like the bipartisan border bill, pass legislation that would grant the government ability to appoint more immigration judges. That's all you got to do is just use the power of the federal government, spend a little more money instead of spending it on Super Bowl and Daytona 500 visits and stupid parades and Elon Musk's Doge, all this shit. Yes, instead of spending this money on all this other dumb shit, spend it on that. Get more immigration judges. Make the process go faster. Immigration hearings are very short. These guys are talking like when they say we're going to have 1 million trials, they're banking on the fact that people's assumptions are that it's like 1 to 2 million like O.J. Simpson trials where it lasts for like weeks and weeks and months and months. They're thinking that instead of it just being like literally immigration hearings are often like sometimes same day. That once they have the hearing, they can adjudicate whatever they feel they need to because it's just a determination of removal. It's not for a punishment. You're not being punished for a crime. It's just, do you get to stay in the U.S. or not kind of thing. That's literally all it is. So the fact that these guys are obfuscating that just goes to show how piss poor their argument is.
that are some murderers and some drug dealers and some of the worst people on earth, some of the worst, most dangerous people on earth. And I was elected to get them the hell out of here, and the courts are holding me from doing it.
But even given those numbers that you're talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me, and they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said. What you said is not what I heard the Supreme Court said. They have a different interpretation.
Is anyone in your administration
Insanity.
right now in contact with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia to the United States?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the Attorney General that question.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.
Yeah, I mean, the answer to her question is so obvious, people. You couldn't ask something more clear than, does the president have a responsibility to uphold the Constitution? Obviously, yes, he does. Any elected official, any officer of the government has that responsibility. They swear an oath to do so. And if truthfully, I don't care if you think Trump is an okay guy. I don't care if you voted for Trump in all three of the elections he's run in. If you think that is a core aspect of Trump's job, is to be able to just simply do whatever the fuck he wants without regard to the Constitution or respecting a unanimous Supreme Court order that is not ambiguous, like I just got to go back to that, because I've heard Stephen Miller claim, he's one of the few people that has publicly claimed that the Supreme Court's unanimous ruling was in favor of the Trump administration's deportation of any individuals under that would have fallen under that ruling. I've heard Stephen Miller claim that, but it just goes to show that Trump himself has not even read the Supreme Court ruling that is directed at his administration. He wouldn't read it himself. It's just so silly and pathetic that he just wants someone to tell him what it says and then he just acts accordingly. It's so fucking crazy.